here we are, live and direct.
I'm from a place in Nottingham called St Anne's, which is the equivalent of Side in Manchester. Not a nice place to walk around at night.
Yeah, no, I'm from Chilham, so near Wimslow.
Ah, what took you to Brisbane? Because that's it's a massive difference.
I was 20 odd years in Melbourne, and then came to Brisbane. So
that explains why you're nice. Okay, now and I say this with all jest. Well, it's actually a lot of truth in it. I've been doing this MeetMagic thing now for almost 5 years. Well, 5 years on and off. For the past 3 years, it's been relentless because COVID's given us this growth trajectory because the hybrid work model is absolutely helping us. And I've discovered that the Victorians are the most generous. The New South Wales people are the mid-level generous. Queenslanders, we struggle to get them to say yes. And I can't work out if it's the sun. Is it too much beer that they're drinking? I don't. Is it the rugby?
Maybe it's the mix of the sun and the beer together.
I don't know. It's just very strange. It's just like it's quite distinguishable. The amount of execs that say yes, lots and lots in Victoria, less in New South Wales, even less in Queensland.
Well, I think that's the whole point of today, isn't it? It's about how we engage our senior leaders, and Lisa, you're the first in the series, and we appreciate you chatting with us today. Obviously, the CEO, Chief Strategy Officer at Equifax. Appreciate your time, and I think with the people that are sort of tuning in right now, I think it's probably important to find out a little bit about you, and I guess your background and how you ended up where you are right now, so that people can kind of understand. I think the important thing with a lot of our vendors that are sitting out there that are wanting to meet with execs like yourself, I think it's important that they understand who you are as a person first and foremost, but then also a little bit about you and your job, and I guess what you look for when somebody wants to have a meeting with you. So I guess the first question I want to ask is just tell us a little bit about yourself, a bit of background about yourself.
So as we just discussed, I grew up in the UK. I was actually born in Australia. My parents were 10 pound poms. Came to Australia and left when I was 3. Spent all of my sort of years growing up in the UK. Did all of those things that normal people do, party hard. It includes going to uni. I think those two things are probably synonymous.
They probably go together.
And got into banking, settled down, bought a house.
That's very responsible.
It was very responsible. Woke up one day and realised I actually wasn't ready to be that responsible. And I jumped on a plane and came to Australia. And I have literally been here ever since.
And Equifax, you've been with them for how long?
4 years. So when I first came into Australia, I was actually a broker. So I was, thinking about going into a car dealership. I was one of those finance and insurance salespeople that annoy you, that are there to help you purchase your vehicle. And I was a broker for a few years. And then I spent a little bit of time probably on the back end of financial services. I played a lot of sport for a number of years, and so I decided I'd get a 9-to-5 job. I don't think those things actually exist anymore, but whatever a 9-to-5 job is, and I played sport for about 10 years. And then I got to about, 34, 35, and thought I should probably do something with my career. And I joined GE, which is probably the best decision I ever made. And spent the next 12 years really at the what I would call the Leadership University of GE.
Was Jack Welch running that?
Yeah, when I started, Jack was there. Obviously, Immelt came in actually just as September 11 happened. 3 days before September 11, I think he started in the role. But, Jack Welch's influence was very strong when I started. The idea of businesses continuously improving, Six Sigma, all of those sorts of things. And so I did 12 years. And the thing that was fascinating for me about that as an organisation was that they believed in transferable skills. And so you didn't need to know the job. They just needed to believe you could do it. And fundamentally, that's probably an ethos that has stuck with me all the way through my career. And, what that allows you, I think, to do both individually as a person, but organisations is, continue to reinvent yourself, continue to reinvent your business, and to grow your business with the right aptitude and the right attitude, and the experience comes along.
Do you think, and I'm a former sportsman as well, do you think through your sporting career that's you've taken a lot of those skills and the drives and the disciplines and applied them into the workforce and into the career that you've currently got?
Yeah, look, I think, when you play sport, particularly team sport, I played soccer, probably not surprising given I grew up in the UK. You really are, it is a team. I mean, you really will only be as good as your weakest link. And you can't keep running around the park and trying to cover for everybody else. Everybody has to play their part in you being successful. And, I learned that very early on in my sporting career, particularly came into fruition as I got older and I couldn't run around the park. But getting everybody aligned, focused on the same goals and being able to understand, the personalities is as critical in business as it is in sport.
Brendan's very humble. He was a tall black, which I didn't even know what one of them was. That's the national team for New Zealand. And he used to lead the team out and do the haka with the... Is that right? You led the team, Brendan, with the haka and so on?
Yeah. So many years, but it's not about me, Lisa. I have that background, and I just, for me, and I guess for the people that are listening, I mean, when you look at your current role and the responsibilities that you have within that role, what is it? What is it that you do, and so that people can understand?
Yeah, look, it's a question that I ask myself a lot, if I'm honest, because I don't produce anything. My job is not to necessarily produce things, but my job is to make sure that all of the people across the organisation can do the best work that they can do, and feel great about it. That is my job. And so that comes to really a few different things. That's making sure that we have the right talent and capability in the business. It's also making sure we equip them in the right way and they've got the right tools and training to do the roles that they need to do. But after that, it's around culture. And it really comes back to, how committed, how aligned, how enthused are they? Do they genuinely believe in the purpose and the passion of what we do and what we're trying to achieve? And our business is very much a B2B business, so it's a business that serves other businesses. We do have an impact on consumers that we should never forget about, but largely it's a B2B business. And so we're enabling many businesses, both in the public and private sector, to do great work. And it's important that we understand that we are and have a huge influence on what happens across our economy.
Yeah, that probably brings me to my next question around some of the challenges right now, in the environment that we're in right now and that we've been through with COVID and with various other things that are going on around the world. How do you overcome, or how do you deal with these challenges and work through them in an environment that's, pretty up and down right now, especially with what's going on globally?
Yep. Obviously the last couple of years has been a bit of a challenge, but in some ways I think it's been a blessing. And the reason I say that is I think it has really, made organisations think about the care factor across both the people who work for them and the communities in which they live. And that is, in my view, a great outcome of COVID. Clearly you wouldn't necessarily want to order a pandemic for that to happen, but I do think the amount of care that organisations are now bringing into their thinking and their workforce is better than I've seen in my whole career.
Has Equifax changed, do you think, since going through this pandemic, or is it growing because the culture that's sort of been driven for many years is actually coming to the forefront with the environment that we're in?
Look, I think it's a little bit of both. We're a global business and the impacts have been different in different countries. One of the values of a global business is that you have global leverage, but there's a uniqueness and a localization required in any business, particularly when you're operating across different markets and different countries. And the impacts have been quite materially different, depending on whether you're talking about Latin America into Europe, obviously Australia, New Zealand, or into the US. And the way that leaders have dealt with it has been different, both at a political level, obviously in Australia and New Zealand quite different to if you look at the model that was used in the US or the UK. And so I think, again, what it has informed is the need to be much more situational, but understand your people, your market much better than maybe we did before.
Right. So what does a typical day look like for you when you get up in the morning to the end of the day? What does that look like? I mean, obviously it changes day to day, but give us a sort of an overview of what that would look like.
Yeah, look, it does change day to day. There's a few things that I try and make sure I have in my day. So the first one is, really spending some time with my team. And so my direct team, just making sure that there's no burning issues that, we need to help sort of clear the roadblocks on. The second part of the day, I try to invest at least some time in making sure I'm face-to-face with customers. Obviously, in recent times, that's more online. But still hearing directly from our customers about what they're feeling and thinking. The third area that I spend a lot of my time on is really around that strategic intent. So, we're running a very large transformation at the moment that consumes both a lot of energy and a lot of thought, because for as much as we plan, those plans will change. That's the reality of life. But also, we need to be feeding information from the marketplace back into our business, because, we're not an island. We're actually here to enable other businesses. And so really keeping a watch on what's going on in the marketplace, understanding how our customers are reacting and responding to certain things, be that, customers, regulators, or something else. That's important for me and my team to understand. And I do spend a fair bit of my time really looking outside.
So I guess, and it probably moves to the MeetMagic side of things and the importance of those meetings and, the vendors wanting to meet with you. What would you particularly look for? Would it be a new product or would it be a solution? What is it that something like Equifax would look at when wanting to talk to somebody like a vendor that's engaged through the MeetMagic platform?
Yeah. So I think maybe two things that I think about. So we're in the solutions business. I mean, that's what we do. And solutions come in many forms. It's very rare that I would, have a conversation with somebody and the product that they're trying to sell to me or incorporate would actually be perfect for what we're trying to do. So it's really being able to think about what's the solution designed for and how would that fit into our business. And as I said, we have a pretty broad church of products and solutions that we take to market. But fundamentally, they are anchored to two things. The first thing they're anchored to is providing insights back to our customers so they can make smart choices. And the second thing they're anchored to is making that frictionless as possible. So that's our job in a nutshell. If we have, partners, suppliers, vendors, or even people who are, entrepreneurs thinking about different solutions or solving different market problems, we're really interested to talk to people about that. But they have to really be able to answer one of those two questions for us, for it to be meaningful.
And I'm really actually quite proud that Equifax are our first podcast, because I think you've played a significant. I've got goose pimples talking about this, Lisa, because it's for anyone that's thinking about doing a startup. It's not an easy journey for anybody, especially trying to do it when you've not capitalized or you haven't got your bootstrapping. And that journey is not for the faint-hearted. I've got new teeth that I'm getting fixed, because during the 5 years of doing this startup, I had a couple of failures in the run-up to this. My credit rating took a pounding, and then somebody else tried to steal my identity, and it all ended up on a bad credit rating, which Equifax had access to, and I had to reach out to you. I remember reaching out to you to ask you to help me understand what the hell is going on, and because I can't get credit, everything is failing. And when I tell this story, I remember reaching out to you and getting some guidance, and then we cleaned. I understood for the first time what it was that was blocking me from moving ahead, and that's the power that Equifax gave to me. As soon as I understood what was going on and I was able to clear that, my entire world changed.
Yep. No, I think that's right. When we think about our proposition, it really is about people living their financial best. and we hold ourselves to high regard in helping people understand what happens as, the world of credit particularly, and the cycle of credit occurs. And, we certainly are here to help people if they get into exactly that situation where they're not quite sure exactly what happened, how it happened, what data is held by different organisations. And we can help work through that for people so they can make sure that they're not impacted, because it is meaningful in people's lives. There is no doubt about it. But yeah, I think whether you're an individual, or whether you're a business, those, problems do exist. And, I would encourage anybody who is concerned, firstly, to obviously speak to your financial institution. They hold that data. But if you can't get the right resolution, by all means, come to us.
It was one of those moments in your life when you get a report back and you look at this and you go, what on earth is that? And I realized that somebody had actually taken my identity. They were using a different address, which I've never even lived at, to try and get credit cards from Latitude. And they'd done it a number of times, and my entire credit rating was shot to pieces because of this. And it wasn't until I was able to just unbelievable story. But this, I'm glad because of Equifax, because that gave me the clarity that I needed to go and solve this problem. And, and now we're in a position where we can grow and scale this business. And that wouldn't have happened without that. So thank you.
Seriously, I mean, that's the service we provide. And it's important. We want people to think of this as, how do we enable people to live their financial best? We're not here to disable it.
I want to talk about, you mentioned before about how meetings have changed due to COVID. There's a lot more virtual meetings online. And I mean, I don't know about you, Lisa, but I'm a person that likes to be in the room with somebody, and be able to have that. But that's all changed. So, when you look at some of the ways that we're meeting now, can you share any positive or frustrating things that have happened to you via virtual meetings?
Yeah, look, so maybe a couple of things just before we get to that. I mean, one of the things I was having this conversation with a group of people very recently because we're organising a large group of people to come together for what will be our sort of annual strategy meeting. And again, if I go back to some of the positives of COVID, there's always been this assumption that, to get the best out of people, you get, 50 or 100 people together, you put them in a room, you break out into small groups and you all come back together. And that's how people get energized. And I will tell you that there's probably, if it's a group of 50, there's probably 30 people that get energized through that. And the other 20 spend a whole lot of time thinking, that's not really what I want to do.
Yeah.
That's not how I get my energy. I get my energy sitting, in a quiet room thinking about this, really mulling it over. And so, again, being able to reflect on, how do you get the best out of people? The virtual meetings, I think, have allowed some people to have a greater share of voice. But it's also made those people who don't like that, I guess, that publicity that goes with being in even in a virtual meeting, because, the camera shifts from you or to that person as they speak, and they're sort of front and centre. And I think it's created a lot of people who've taken more of a backseat. And their voices are important. And so how do you then create the right environment for them to feel comfortable about speaking up and having the right level of input? And one of the things that we found is, breaking it down into making sure that those people who didn't get a voice, you go back to them maybe one-on-one or one-on-two and having a different type of conversation with them so that they've firstly had what is important to them, which is the time to process. But then secondly, you're not asking them to speak up in a group of 50. We have found that that's very effective, particularly if they're in the comfort of their own home and they're in a relaxed environment versus they feel like they're on stage in a large room or somewhere else. So I think that has worked. But we do need to continue to be conscious of where people get their energy from, where people get their confidence from, and make sure that it's not a one-size-fits-all, whether it's in-person, VC, one-on-one large groups, we've got to continue to look for ways to make sure that everybody has a voice.
So what's important for you? I'm just want to move to the vendor that wants to meet with you. What's important to you when somebody wants to meet with you? So that, is it preparation? Is it understanding what you're wanting to pitch to you? Is it clear and concise? I suppose it's all those things, but what's the thing that's most important to you when someone wants to engage with you in a meeting?
Look, know why you want to meet is probably the most important. Is it I'm trying to get an answer on something? Is it a discussion? Is it an exploration? So being really clear about what's the purpose of the meeting. I'm open to all of those types of conversations, but I would like to know in advance what type of conversation it's intending to be. The second is if you are trying to get a particular outcome, be open and upfront about the outcome that you're trying to get. It's really helpful. And so, I can go in with that frame of mind, and I'm listening to the information that's being shared with that in my mind versus it sort of coming as a surprise at the end. And then the third thing is, be bold. Don't feel like, you have to sort of sell me something. It's a conversation. Two people having a conversation. That's what it is.
This is really interesting, because I think what COVID has given us is a number of things. One of them is obviously to think a lot about empathy and go back to the inner thoughts of the people in our team. The inner thoughts of what they're thinking about on those meetings is really critical, because, like you mentioned before, if they don't have a voice. But I think people have become really open to having a first meeting via video, and in actual fact, we've discovered it's actually got a lot more benefits than meeting face to face in a coffee shop. Because if you're sitting in a coffee shop with somebody and they're pitching you hard and you can't get away, at least when you're on video, you can say, "Hey, my internet's not working. I've got to go." You can politely, we're about to launch a brand new platform which is AI led, and it's going to match executives like you with people that you want to meet with. So by the time, it's a bit like Tinder for business, a bit like Airbnb for business meetings that have an impact. And this platform is basically going to be a place exactly for that. But we actually mandate no selling, no pitching, you can't come into these meetings just like you wouldn't do a Tinder date. You wouldn't turn up to a Tinder date and ask them to marry you on the first date. So why would you go and ask Lisa? Why would you go and ask Lisa?
I feel like there's a TV show for that.
It's called Maps, isn't it?
That's a great show, by the way. I'll tell you what, you talk about junk TV, that's my favourite downtime watch at the moment. But Lisa, one of the questions I've always got, because we've done the research to the execs and asked them, do you like being sold to? And we know that we've discovered that execs hate being sold to, especially on video. Is that the case? Is that for you? If somebody turns up and just pitches you hard, do you hate that?
Well, I think unless they have enough insight to understand why that would be of value to me, and I think that's hard for people without having more dialogue up front. I mean, it's a bit like this idea of, I have a product to sell and I need you to buy my product. It might solve 50% of what you need, but I need actually something that's going to solve 100%. And I don't think that anybody has enough information to do the hard sell up front. And I think that's probably where lots of people fall down. You need to do the right level of inquiry. You have to understand the need. Otherwise, how am I going to buy it?
And I think that's where MeetMagic is quite unique. With the execs that I've signed up here in New Zealand, it's a real opportunity. What I've seen is a real opportunity for the vendor wanting to meet with the executive, say it's like with you, Lisa, and they'll talk to me, the MeetMagic crew, and go, "We want to talk to Lisa about this, and when are you available?" So, one, they don't bombard your email, and the second thing is that you know exactly what they want to talk about. You're sort of pre-warned, and then you sort of go into the meeting, and the meeting started on that's great that you've decided to meet with Lisa. We've donated $700 to the charity. So you're coming in from a different space, right? You're going, how great that we're able to make an impact right at the start of the meeting before you even talk about anything else. And I think that is a way, and that is something quite unique and different. What I've also found, though, with execs is the exec teams, after meeting a couple of times, have met together and have worked out that they've got these problems or issues that they're wanting to solve. Maybe it's in cybersecurity, and they're coming back to MeetMagic and going, hey, what vendors do you have in this space? And then, so it works in reverse. So all of a sudden they're using it as a place to source meetings and be able to find solutions. But at the same time, that vendor is paying to meet with you, and part of it's going to charity. So it's a lovely collab that happens. And I think that's probably the magic of MeetMagic.
Yeah. And look, I think, all organisations have challenges. For the large part, they're commercial businesses. They do need to make money. They do have products to sell. But the best meetings I have are the ones where the people ask great questions.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing for me, because otherwise you're not really meeting the need because you haven't uncovered the need.
Yeah.
They say that there's been a massive increase in the number of meetings that are happening every day. There's rumours of 40% uplift in meetings. And this, when you think about that number, that's a lot of extra meetings. So that 5-minute water cooler conversation has now turned into a 45-minute Zoom. And then we're reading reports that executives spend 50% of their time in meetings, and 35% of those meetings actually have zero outcome whatsoever. Have you got anything stats around that in your world? Has there been an uplift in meetings? And do you often go into meetings and walk away going, "What the hell was that all about? Why wasn't that a text?"
Yeah, hopefully they're not the ones that I set up. But but look, definitely an increase in meetings. The 5-minute conversation. It's hard to know when that 5 minutes can happen in a virtual world. Chat works well for that. And so using some form of offline chat works well for that. In my diary, what I have seen is meetings have become more efficient, so they're shorter, but now I have more of them.
Right.
And so it's sort of, a win-lose, I guess, in some ways. But, some things that I've learned along the way is if we're not clear about the purpose of the meeting or why I'm needed at the table, then I genuinely would decline them. So that's the first thing. The second is, be clear about who needs to be in the meeting and what what's the purpose? Is it a decision-making forum? If so, are the decision makers there? Otherwise, you can spend a lot of time talking about stuff, but there will be no real outcome. And then the third thing that we found, particularly in our business, is divide and conquer. So, give your delegations out, make sure that your team are well delegated, and make it explicit that that person holds your delegation for that meeting. And so as a consequence of that allows us to share the load across a broader group of people.
And that would also be transformational leadership too, because I think rather than the old transactional type leadership where you set tasks and then follow up with them during the week, and then once they've finished those tasks, give them another list. The whole point of transformational leadership, which is what you're doing there, is you're setting an outcome and then letting them get on with it, and then giving them the support they need to actually achieve those outcomes to work towards where you're going. So I think that's really insightful stuff for us. I mean, I think these podcasts are going to be a great way for us to understand the inner voices and the inner workings of what's happening in this new world of meetings, because I honestly think there are far too many that are taking place right now, and something needs to change meetings for good. And I'm saying that because it's what we do. The theory is, we can do thousands of these meetings on the platform around the world, but every one of them's got a positive outcome. Every one of them, regardless of whether you go into that meeting and nothing happens from a business perspective, there's guaranteed to be an outcome positive on society or some kids or something that are suffering with cancer. So I want to thank you for your support for us, because you've done a fair few meetings for us, and every one of those is, I think we've contributed now to something like almost over $1 million through these meetings.
Wow.
Which is
very impressive.
It is when I can't even afford to get my teeth fixed.
How have you found the meetings, Lisa? How have you personally found the meetings, the whole process of going through and how they've been organised? What's that been like for you, the experience for you?
Yeah, look, I think it's great for two reasons. One is because, as I said, the purpose is normally pretty clear. I do a little bit of research in the background prior to those meetings, so I understand a little bit about the organisation. That's always helpful. But you're right, it is a different frame of reference as you go into that session. And I think that creates an immediate connection and bond that is very hard to do when it's a cold meeting in another environment.
Totally. I want to ask you a question, which is one thing I know Vicky will love this, because Vicky's our head of customer experience, and we often have lots of execs say yes to us, and they say, yep, I'll do some meetings, and then we can't get hold of them again. And we spend God knows how many times going backwards and forwards, trying to get hold of. Calls don't get answered, texts don't get replied to, email. Why is that, do you think? Is that just them saying they don't want to do it, or is it just that they're so busy and so overwhelmed and swamped with messages that they miss it?
So I mean, obviously I can't talk for all people. So I have a golden rule that if you ever want to get hold of me, text is the best way to do it. And so I tell my teams, I might not read all of the emails that come through immediately. I'm very bad at picking up the phone, I have to tell you. Because I'm in meetings, I have it on silent a lot, and then I forget to take it off silent, so that's problematic. But texts, it's nearly instantaneous for me. And so, one of the things maybe to think about when you do that initial setup with people is, what's your preferred contact point?
We don't want to be giving out your phone number to all the people.
No. But it's my work phone number anyway. It's not my personal. I actually have two. I'm one of those people who has two phones.
You got a burner phone.
One that's a personal phone and one that's a work phone. For that very reason, Brendan. But I think most people would be intending to do the right thing. Sometimes EAs will make decisions that we're not aware of. And so, sometimes you won't see that. A good example, just practical example, is in my diary, I keep all the meetings that have been declined for me so I can see them. So that's a setting on your calendar. But some people may never see them. And so, that's just one of those practical things that might be happening.
I'm really interested in your football. So, because I'm a Forest fan, as Brian Clough is my hero, right? I mean, what position did you play?
So I started midfield, and as I got older, I went back into sweeper. And I'm not a Brian Clough fan because I'm actually a Leeds fan, and you will know the history of that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, look, I played for Victoria for 12, 13 years, and I loved every second of it. But I now have some pretty ordinary knees as a consequence. So.
Let me share a quick story, which is kind of a little bit off topic, but it has got something to do with sport. My brother played at Wigan, and he married a lass from Liverpool. And they got married, and I was the MC at the wedding. And one of the things when I was up there, I said, "Oh, mate, it's so good that finally we'll have a Māori, a Kiwi, playing in the Premiership for Manchester United." Well, Did I I'm sure there was stuff flying across the stage at me, but I knew that I'd get a bite because we know what the Scousers are like. Very, very proud and patriotic people.
Well, I think the only worst rivalry between Liverpool and Man U would be Leeds and Man U.
Yeah.
So that's probably the only one that and that's a very bitter rivalry. So.
Yeah, well, Forest have just had. We just got knocked out of the FA Cup. We played Liverpool in that. We actually beat Arsenal and Leicester, the current champions. We had the worst start to the league in 100 years, and we're now 2 points off the playoffs, which is just nuts. And I think our current manager, Steve Cooper, used to be ex-Liverpool manager, so he certainly knows what he's doing. This whole thing comes down to like management again, because you look at these players today. And the data that's coming off them from running around the pitch, you can't afford to hide or not pull your weight because it will come up on the computer. They'll see that you haven't worked.
Oh, look, I think, I always say to people in our business, and I've worked in different businesses, I've been in the financial services business, I've been in the tyre business, I've been in government. We're actually in the people business. That's what we do. And, you think about professional sports, and Brendan, you would know this, but, The difference between the best and the rest is a little bit of physicality, but a huge amount of mindset.
Very much so.
I mean, it's fundamentally how you think about it. And I believe that's the same in business.
Well, I think I agree with you because, when you hire people within organisations, we hire them for their unique skill set and ability, and we want to see them, we ask for innovation, and we want to see their magic, but yet we throw them in this area and we go, you need to work this way, and then we're still wanting innovation, but you won't get it because
That's right.
We don't trust enough for them to do what they need to do. It's like in the sports arena. Everybody plays a certain part in that piece of the puzzle, that the result will take care of itself if all the pieces of that puzzle are met by each individual, which is the same in business.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And it all comes back to also, and a big one for me, is relationships, which if we peel it all back from right to the start, it's relationships with people. It's actually, the intent behind why you're meeting with somebody, it needs to be pure. You talked before, don't surprise people. I always say you start something the way you're going to finish, then there's no surprises. At the end of the day, yes, I do want to meet with you, and yes, I'd love to do some business with you, but let's connect first and foremost. Let's connect. And I think that's what this platform allows, is that connection piece. And I think for those vendors that are listening now, and I think what's given me a lot of success when I'm dealing with different businesses and organisations and philanthropists is that relationship with that person. Find that common thread and grow it, and then that other stuff will take care of itself.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, everybody needs to have, that sort of passion, purpose and sense of belonging. Again, we're all just individuals trying to find our way, different businesses, doing different things, trying to be successful, go into those meetings with your ears wide open and listen for where, the magic could happen.
And Lisa, I must admit, when you first agreed to take a meeting with us, do you know, when I first launched this business, I came up with the idea in 2017. I launched this MVP, which was like, it's the most embarrassing thing. And when I look back at it now, and that's how it should be. If your first MVP is not embarrassing, you've missed the mark.
You spent too much money.
Exactly. And I remember every executive that told me no, that mindset again, I'd have to keep going until I got a yes. And every time I got a yes, I'd sit back in my chair. It was this chair, and I'd literally punch the sky going, yes, that's one more. When the chief operating officer of Equifax signed up, it was like I'd won Christmas. It was like this big global business. The chief operating officers come on board, and it was almost like a turning point for me to say, keep going. That was the trust and the belief that somebody like that could actually say yes to this, keep going. And I've had no's from some people, but like Brendan's brought on board the CEOs of banks in New Zealand, and we've done podcasts with Steve Jerkovich, the CEO of Kiwi Bank, and human beings wanting to do good in the world and believe that they can actually do good through a simple meeting, which is exactly what we're trying to do. I think so. I always want to thank you again publicly, not only for taking all that baggage off my shoulder, helping me with that, because that was a big deal, but also for being one of our first pioneer execs.
Yeah, my pleasure. I think, as I said before, it's all about connections, and the work that you guys are doing, it's a very virtuous way of making those connections real. And, you have my support 100%. Beautiful.
We really appreciate it. And Brendan, I think we're almost wrapping up here, aren't we?
No, I appreciate, Lisa, your time. It's always nice to look at it from the exec side of things, and I think people need to understand maybe a little bit about who you are and what Equifax are doing. And so I'm sure people have appreciated today, and are probably more aware now when they meet with you what they should be doing. But I think that the common theme that comes out of it is just to be yourself, be pure with your intent around what you're doing and what you're asking for, and remember that, through these meetings, before you even start to talk about business, you're actually making a difference in somebody else's lives. And to me, that's massively important, because we're so self-centered in what we do and the way we work, and we get so busy that we don't have time. And so to be able to give 45 minutes of your time to be able to do that and to be able to help somebody else, I think is phenomenal. It's a huge passion of mine. That's why I've been in this industry for such a long time. I love it. And for me, it's about legacy. It's about leaving, making a difference in some small way. And I think if we all do a little bit, that makes a big bit, which makes a massive change. So thank you so much, Lisa, for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Not bad for the first one. We're a little bit rusty in the first one, but I think we'll get better as it goes on. But we appreciate your time.
No problem at all.
I just need to learn to shut up. It's really hard coming from Nottingham. I mean, you know Brian Clough, old Big Ed. You know, he just didn't. Do you know what he said, though, Lisa? This is a very interesting thing. He said that he's not saying he's the best manager in the first division, but he's definitely in the top one. Now I've got the same thing about our meetings, and I've got a picture of Clough's quote up on my wall here in the office. So I say, I'm not saying our meetings are the best in the world, but they're definitely in the top one.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with confidence.
No, exactly.
We should try and build it in everybody.
Very much.
Exactly. And I think that for the young kids watching this that are coming through in the sales world, I mean, even the Gen Zers, like my daughter's age, you know, even some of the millennials that haven't grown up understanding how to do their research about before they meet with somebody, you've just given them a whole pearl of wisdom about what to do before they have that connection. And we mandate no pitching hard, do your research, do some background. And then when you go into this meeting, you've got an altruistic-based approach to start with. It's a beautiful way to connect from the heart. And from there, the world's your oyster. You can just connect on a human level first.
That's exactly right.
That's a beautiful thing. So bless you, Lisa. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Take care.